Ubisoft has announced that Assassin's Creed has surpassed 2 million players, which isn't sales at all. But apparently, in the modern era of gaming, I guess these companies don't care about if a game sells or not. They just want to let their investors know who's played it, because if they talked about the sales, it probably wouldn't look that good. What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Smash JT. Ubisoft is trying to claim King of the Hill when it comes to new game releases and their Assassin's Creed franchise. But in reality, what's actually happening, and people are seeing this for what it is they are trying their best to come up with an idea of moving these numbers around, manipulating the facts into the best way they can, so that when they present it to us, the end user, it sounds great, even if it's not. JT. Hit that subscribe, give me a like, and check out smashjt.com for the full article breaking down how Ubisoft is trying to claim like everything is hunky-dory, when in reality, they are screwed. On launch day, Ubisoft had announced that Assassin's Creed Shadows had crossed over the 1 million player count barrier. And now, just another day later, Ubisoft is now going to the official Assassin's Creed X account, declaring that now they have 2 million players. But what is suspiciously missing from all of this is the actual tangible sales number figures that people are curious about. And for some strange reason, Ubisoft is not providing any of that. On X, their official Assassin's Creed account said, 2 million players. We're thrilled to celebrate this incredible milestone. Assassin's Creed Shadows has now surpassed the launches of AC Origins and Odyssey. Thank you for joining the journey in feudal Japan. Hashtag Assassin's Creed Shadows, with a screenshot image of 2 million players. Which, first off, when I read that, I'm just like, well, hold up. Did those other games even come out day one on Steam? Like, I think Odyssey may have, or Origins might have as well. But I feel like there's some specifics that are missing from this in order to paint Shadows in the best possible light. And then when you dive deeper, finding out how people are actually accessing this game, it brings up far more questions than answers as far as how much money Ubisoft is actually seeing from all of this. Instead of announcing units sold, Ubisoft instead decides to push the more ambiguous players engaged metric. Why? Because hard sales numbers obviously aren't looking nearly as impressive. We can gather from how Ubisoft has approached this entire PR situation that Shadows has not potentially even crossed 1 million purchases yet, which is insane to say for an Assassin's Creed title. And if it did surpass 1 million sales, don't you think that's what they'd be leading with? Why would you bury the lead of the sales to say players engaged when nobody really cares about that, especially the investors? The answer is simple: Ubisoft Plus. With Ubisoft Plus, the subscription services are becoming the new norm for struggling publishers. Ubisoft is quietly funneling players into their own Game Pass style model, where they can access Shadows and even top-tier editions with all the DLC and bells and whistles for cheaper than buying the actual game at full price at launch with all the additional DLC and other content. It's not that millions of people bought the game. No, not even close. It's that many people are renting this game for a far less price, for we'll say about 17 or 18 bucks a month, and most gamers will be canceling that after the first month, and you go back to the drawing board as wondering, all right, now how do we make money? Because we only made that tiny little bit when it initially launched, and now we're not getting anything residually from it. That's the big difference. And then in addition to Ubisoft Plus, you go into how they were actually giving this game away for free for people who were purchasing any qualifying Intel Core processors or Intel Arc graphic cards leading up to the launch of Assassin's Creed Shadows. So yeah, there's a good amount of people that didn't pay for this game at full price. And that's not even counting the Steam players that is still struggling on the SteamDB charts, where, yes, it just surpassed 60,000 concurrent, so I owe Hypnotic $100. I lost my bet on this by a handful of people. On the second full day and first weekend, they barely surpassed 60,000 concurrent players, which is absolutely embarrassing for the Assassin's Creed brand in general, but specifically for a massive launch that was available on Steam for day one. It is unheard of. But then digging deeper into the Steam charts, and you realize, oh, Steam has a very flexible return policy that allows you to return whatever game you want if you haven't played more than 2 hours of it. And from playing this game for about 6 to 7 hours so far myself, I can confidently state that, yeah, I could figure in the first 2 hours that this game really isn't for me. And if I had paid the full $70 for it, I would have potentially refunded my purchase. But this game was gifted to me and I'm playing it for my viewers, so sure, I'll stick to it. But if I was just playing this game for the fun of it, I would have tapped out long ago. This kind of metric that they're going out there with 2 million plus players is designed to look flashy in a headline or a tweet, especially for the people who aren't paying any kind of attention. You know, the normies and the journos are going to scream from their rooftops, W! We win! We are owning the chuds with this game. But in reality, you're not. Like, it's just not. 2 million players is nothing to scoff at. It's a legit large amount of people. For an indie game, it would be incredible. For a game that was in development for 5 plus years and over 3,000 employees working on it, for a company that's in billions of dollars worth of debt, yeah, no, 2 million players that have touched this game is not necessarily 2 million purchases. And even if it was 2 million purchases, it still would pale in comparison to what Ubisoft needs in order to guarantee their success for the future. Not exactly the sign of record breaking success, if you ask me. Follow the money. And the investors are not fooled by Ubisoft's wordplay. This whole players engaged tactic isn't new either. We've seen it used before, as friend of the channel Hypnotic points out on X, that the reply to the Assassin's Creed UK account, Skull and Bones, Star Wars Outlaws, Dragon Age the Veilguard, all tried to manipulate perception with similar messaging. And what happened? Massive layoffs, development hell, or a slow crawl to irrelevance. It all boils down to a PR strategy, not anything that's actually worth celebrating. But this is one of those situations where, yet again, don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. Ubisoft clearly needs Shadows to look like a win to everyone watching from the outside, especially after years of turmoil and declining investor confidence. They're doing everything they can within their power to warp the numbers in a way where it looks victorious, banking on hopeful good press to keep their sinking ship afloat. But when you actually compare this to breakout hits like Split Fiction, a game with an actual sales and fan momentum, Shadows falls well short. Then when you add in the size of the teams and the cost of the project, boy, it's not a pretty picture. Like, take for example, last night after my stream talking about the gaming news, gaming industry, I was going to be streaming Assassin's Creed Shadows. But I was like, well, first, let me get a palate cleanser and play some Yasuke Simulator, a indie title that was made by what seems to be one dude for going for like $3 on Steam as a joke. I ended up playing that game for the full almost 2 hours of runtime in the game until completion, beating it and having a fantastic time the entire time I was playing it, laughing it up with the chat, hysterical broken things in it that you know is coming from an indie game, so you're far more forgiving with it. But the gameplay was fun. The situations were ridiculous. The environments didn't fit what it was supposed to be. And that was the joke, and it landed perfectly in a weird way. Made me want to keep playing it just to see how ridiculous it would keep getting. And sure, clearly it's not a triple A title, supposedly, or quadruple A if we're talking Ubisoft with Assassin's Creed Shadows. But in its own way, I take a step back from Yasuke Simulator and comparing it directly to Assassin's Creed Shadows and saying, I honestly had more fun playing Yasuke Simulator than I do playing Assassin's Creed Shadows, because Yasuke Simulator knows what it is. It's a straight up game, arcadey, fun, blast, shoot 'em up, doing random crazy things the whole time, and the action is nonstop. Sure, the controls are terrible, the camera angles broken, half the images aren't even loaded in it, but it's super fun. And then you go over to Assassin's Creed Shadows and you have these overcomplicated menus, what feels like tacked on RPG elements, storylines that just drone on forever, and some of the worst voice acting I have ever heard in my entire life from any game I've ever played. And you look over at an indie game, you're like, well, damn, they did this and it's actually good. So I just thought it was curious when you compare the two. But regardless of that, the fact that Ubisoft had an entire team of over 3,000 people and 2+ hours of a credits roll to go through to get through all these people just for a game that feels like a lot of bloat at the end of it isn't necessarily a very enticing option when there's so many other games out there, up to and including older Assassin's Creed games that are, by all accounts, so much better than Shadows for a fraction of the price. Ubisoft can say the game is popular all they want because a million people had rented it. Calling it a hit is like calling a fast food burger a gourmet when it's sold billions. Numbers don't taste great though. It might get a lot of traffic, but nobody's actually taking it home. Unless Ubisoft drops actual real sales numbers, this 2 million player stat that they're pushing out is just noise, smoke, and mirrors. And honestly, anybody who's anybody in the know right now is not falling for it. Anyways, I'm gonna leave it there. If you guys want more information, check out smashjt.com for the full article. I will link it in the description below. If you appreciate what I'm doing, hit that join button. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, you stay smashing. Smash,